On this day, we are back to discuss Braveheart. Now, this is not going to be a historical analysis of the movie. This half of this episode is going to just be talking about this as a movie. Now, as we all know, this movie will be having its 30th anniversary this April. So this is kind of a special episode. Okay, why I like this movie is, well, first, the music by James Horner is simply always great to listen to. A lot of people say this is the best love story ever in a movie. But let me tell you this, there are better love story movies. The way that this was crafted made it so that, like, yeah. But the love story was taken from, like, a poem, which I'll do a better deep dive of in the historical analysis part of this 2-part episode that we've all been waiting for. Obviously, the cast is very, very stacked in this movie. You get Mel Gibson as William Wallace, Brendan Gleeson as Hamish, Angus McFadyen as Robert the Bruce, Patrick McGoohan as Longshanks, and Catherine McCormick as Murron. Now, yes, this movie is a very dark movie. Well, yes. No shock. It is a historical drama piece, so it is going to be dark. This movie here changed Mel Gibson's career for, like, ever. Because after this movie, He starred in The Patriot, Payback, and many other good movies. I haven't personally seen Payback. I'm just gonna say it's a good movie because it's on Prime. Anyway, Mel Gibson playing the part of this hero wasn't originally going to be planned. It was just going to be him directing the movie and somebody else acting Wallace. But eventually he would step up to the mantle of Wallace. He acted the older Wallace. This movie is one of the most rewatchable movies for me. Besides The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. This is a go-to movie for me. And yes, it's got some great quotes. One is here on the case. Every man dies, not every man truly lives. And, well, it's really, but whatever. That's the quote. This is a spoiler alert. That's what he says to Princess Isabel before he's executed. The words of Malcolm Wallace: it's our wits that make us men. That is so true. And it's not necessarily our ability to fight that proves manhood. That's why that quote is amazing. And yes, this movie is the movie with the best one-word line ever that just rings on through time. And that is, spoiler alert, when William Wallace is getting executed, that's what he says to go out. And another great line: "You have bled with Wallace, now bleed with me." That line is pretty cool, and that's also in this movie. his speech before the Battle of Stirling is one of the most perfect hero speeches ever. Mel Gibson did the best possible job at delivering that speech. He did a very good job at portraying William Wallace. Yes. Overall, I say it was an enjoyable battle to watch, too. It's one of the battles that actually inspires some of my story writing battles. Good battle to reference for that. And William Wallace, the way they portray him in this is like one of the best ways to do a character. And I can't wait for the day where I own this movie in 4K. But it's already fine enough with the DVD. But still, it would be cool to have a sharper image at some of the parts. The whole premise of this film is basically Wallace and the first war to Scottish independence. There were two wars, which I'll dive deeper into the historical segment for the second part of this episode. William Wallace reminds you of Captain Moroni in the Book of Mormon. If you've read the Book of Mormon before, I know that some of my subscribers aren't members, which is fine. But basically, what this reminds me of in the Book of Mormon is the chapters of the stripling warriors. Yet a small force those people were, they still managed to beat the enemy. which in the case of this movie is the English people. The Scottish people are the good guys. In the Book of Mormon case, it was the Lamanites and the stripling warriors. But the only difference is this movie here is about a bunch of battles that grown men fought, while the stripling warriors were children, teenagers, very strong teenagers. Now, you've heard me talk enough about Wallace. Now hear me talk about Longshanks. The way McGoohan portrayed Longshanks was so great. It almost makes you hate and love the character at the same time. Like, it's literally that good. Angus McFadden as Robert the Bruce. Good choice. There's also a Robert the Bruce movie on Prime. But compared to this one, this masterpiece here, Robert the Bruce sucks dirt. Like, it... They tried to tell Robert the Bruce's story the same way they did here. But the way they told Robert the Bruce's story in Robert the Bruce on Prime didn't do him the Braveheart service. Robert the Bruce. Yes. 17th Robert Bruce. Was the second rebellion leader that led the Second War of Independence. We do see a glimpse of that at the end of this masterpiece here. Starting with one of the coolest things. You have bled with Wallace, now bleed with me. And then Hamish just throws his shield off to the side. Pulls out the sword and yeets it across the field. We get to see the sword floating through the air and mount on the ground. I mean, And then you see them charge. You don't see them actually fight the battle. I was kind of hoping Robert the Bruce would show that battle, but Robert the Bruce didn't show that battle. It just showed Robert the Bruce. Didn't show Bannockburn at all. Now, yes, you can watch Robert the Bruce if you want. But this movie here is better. Edward Longshanks is obviously Edward the First. Edward the Second, his successor, the way that he was painted in this movie was like I wouldn't say it was exact to history, but I'll dive deeper into that aspect of the movie. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Sophia Marceau is also a part of this movie. Oh, Sophie Marceau, French drama actress. She portrays the likeness of Princess Isabel, which I'll talk about more in the historical part of this video, but the way she's portrayed in this movie I think empowers women like the way Eowyn was portrayed in Lord of the Rings. A strong feminine character trying to help a weak lowly lord of people, the lowly royalty, become stronger, but Henry II, Edward II didn't really do well as king. Yes, I'll talk more about him and Isabel in the second part of this video, which will be another video. Shockingly. But Braveheart was nominated for 5 Academy Awards. Probably at the 96 Oscars. Because 95 was before this movie came out. The Oscars after this movie came out were the 96 Oscars. This movie got so many standing ovations. James Horner would later go on to score 2 more historical dramas. Oddly enough. One directed by James Cameron, and then the other directed by Wolfgang Peterson. Both of those ones are good if you ever have the chance to check those out. I'll probably do episodes analyzing those two soon. Now let's talk about the runtime of the movie. Of course, I like to talk about runtimes because I like long movies. I appreciate them. This movie runs for about as long as one of the theatrical editions of Lord of the Rings. It runs 2 hours and 57 minutes. 3 more minutes and it would be 3 hours long. But don't worry, like Lord of the Rings, it moves pretty fast, so I wouldn't worry about it. And yes, it is rated R. As most historical dramas are, in respect, because history is a nasty thing. But we have to learn it, so the only other language available for this movie is French, because Wallace actually speaks French in this movie. And James Horner with the score was the right choice for this movie. He scored Titanic and Troy later on. This movie came out in April of 95. Titanic came out in 97, November of 97, and then Troy, I don't know exactly when Troy released. It released sometime in 04. So, this movie is almost 30 years old. And the R rating for this movie actually makes sense. unlike for the extended edition of Battle of the Five Armies, and many other heinously R-rated films that don't feel like R-rated films, this one actually feels like an R-rated film. Because it actually shows the blood. It's not afraid to be what it is. And it's a movie telling a dark point in world history. Like, yes. I forgot to mention that Brian Cox also shows up in this movie for a little bit as Argyle Wallace, William Wallace's uncle. And he actually brings up a good point of, well, you're leaving whether you want to or not. You're coming with me because you can't be alone as a child. Now, especially after seeing the whole thing with the McAndrews, that whole fiasco. Argyle didn't want that happening to William, so he took him and taught him how to speak Latin so he understood Latin. He took him on various pilgrimages. Whether that's historical, I'm not going to say it is. I could take an hour to talk about this movie, but, like, yeah, you should check this one out. This gem is a gem that will teach you very many life lessons, and like, it's just an awesome film.